Welcome to Saving America. This is your host, Dr. David D. Schein. Our series of interviews for Saving America establishes that the world is full of interesting people. Once you hear from our next guest, I'm sure that you will agree that she deserves the moniker of interesting person. Saving America welcomes Kim Lengling. Who is a prolific author who shares her love of nature, animals, living with PTSD, and her mission of tossing nuggets of hope. She is the lead author and coordinator of a collaborative 3-book series titled When Grace Found Me and 2 standalone anthologies, When Hope Found Me, released November 2022, and Paw Prints on the Couch, released August of 2023. In addition to writing, she hosts the podcast Let Fear Bounce, spotlighting people who make a positive difference in the world, whether by writing, film production, philanthropy, teaching, founding nonprofits, and more. You can regularly find Kim drinking copious amounts of coffee and taking long walks with her dog, Dexter, who is also her official office manager. Today, she is joining us to discuss her new book, Nuggets of Hope. We welcome Kim Lengling for her first appearance on Saving America.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
Well, great. Well, we're looking forward to chatting with you. And as you know, we ask our guests 3 questions, and your bio mentions dealing with PTSD. This challenge has been in the public eye a lot, probably the last 20 years, especially due to the Mideast wars. What has been your path to recovery?
My path to recovery. It's been a bumpy one, and I think it probably is for most folks that live with PTSD. And that could be, veterans or anyone who's went through a traumatic experience can experience it. But for about 15 years, I kind of stuffed it down. Kept telling myself, I'm fine, I'm all right, I'm a veteran, I can deal with this. Pull up your big girl panties, Kim, you're fine. Quit being a baby. That's in my head. All that negative self-talk that we give ourselves, you know? And I did that for about 15 years. And so I thought I was doing pretty good, you know, until I wasn't. And it was just life came at me all kinds of ways. I experienced my grandmother passed away. I was going through a divorce. A dear friend of mine committed suicide. And all of this stuff it just felt like it was just, you know, kicks to the gut. And then all that stress and all that grief and torment was bringing up all kinds of stuff from the 15 years prior. And it was just a swirly mess in my head. I didn't know what was going on with me. I was like, oh gosh, there's something wrong. I think I'm going crazy. Am I going crazy? And I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, was losing all kinds of weight. And friends of mine in the veteran post that I'm a member of, they happen to be combat Vietnam vets. And they're about 20 years older than me. And a few of them noticed a difference in me, that shift. And they said, and they always called me kid. They said, kid, we don't know what's causing everything that you're going through right now or what your issues are, but we recognize them. And if you don't get yourself to the VA, we're going to drag you kicking and screaming. And I did not answer them in a nice way. It was like,
Big
yeah,
surprise.
I was like, I'm fine. Leave me bleep, bleep, bleep alone, and they said, now, if you don't go, we will take you. And they did. They did take me.
They
Um,
literally kidnapped you and hauled you over to
yes.
the VA hospital.
And
Okay.
I was angry. I was super angry. And at that time, and this is quite a while ago, I'm aging myself, but this was quite a while ago. At that time, there were nothing. There were no programs, no counselors, no nothing in place for female veterans. And I had experienced sexual assault by 2 individuals. There were no female counselors. They didn't know what to do with me. And the counselor, a gentleman, of course, and he happened to be a Vietnam vet as well. When I was in his office with him that first night, he just said, because I had told myself, I told him, I'm not sharing anything with you. I was made to come here. He goes, that's fine. We can sit here and stare at each other for 45 minutes if you want. I went, fine, good, we will. And we did. We did. We stared at each other for 45 minutes. But he was very honest and said, "We don't know what to do with you. We don't have anything in place for you." He goes, "So we're going to be learning together how to get you feeling better, because that's the goal." And I will always appreciate him being so honest. And I kept going back. The guys kept taking me back. And then I started going on my own. And it was a very slow, very bumpy, very, very hard process. But once I started gathering some tools in my tool belt, that's what I like to say, it was easier to recognize certain things that might cause me to seize up in a panic attack. Or because I suffered from pretty decent anxiety and I would hyperventilate or I would just freeze. I'd be in Walmart and I couldn't move. It was not a fun place to be. And gathering those tools on my journey, I was able to utilize them and recognize certain things that might trigger me or whatever. I could recognize them now before they come and before it hits me hard. And I'll be like, all right, Kim, deep breath. We got this. We can do this. You're in a safe place. You're okay. Look around you. You're fine. So there's certain things that, certain little tools that I still carry with me to this day, because it could be a song, it could be a smell that all of a sudden just makes me go, it takes literally takes my breath away for a minute or two.
Now, did you ever did they give you anti-anxiety meds to help deal with this?
I fought that.
Good.
Surprise.
Yeah.
And I refused that for a long time, but it did get to a point where I was becoming so unhealthy physically. Because thankfully, I was not one that turned to drinking or drugs, anything like that.
Yeah.
I was just stubbornly fighting it on my own. But then I did, there was a time I went to my doctor, my regular doctor, in a full blown panic attack, and it was just not stopping. It wouldn't stop.
Hmm.
And he said, "Kim, we have to do this now." And I'll never forget this with him. He said, "You are trying so hard to climb this mountain, but it doesn't have to be a mountain." He goes, "I will give you the smallest dosage, and we will start you off at 3 months and we'll see. We'll just go and see how it works for you." He goes, "But those mountains will become molehills. So instead of trying to climb, you'll be able to step over." And I've never forgotten that. And so I did take an anti anxiety for about 6 months. And that was years and years ago. And I would say over the last 25 years, I've done that three separate occasions for 6 months at a time. And because my body does not react well to any type of medication.
Sure.
I experience all the side effects. I'm super, super sensitive. Um, so that's why it's like, building up my tool belt the best that I can.
Right.
And because I felt like that was a weakness to have to take
Sure.
a pill, even though it
Did
was
you
only,
ever
it was
get
like 10 milligrams. It was the lowest ever. But it did make the mountains turn into molehills, so I could step over them instead of struggling to climb.
right. Now, did you ever get a female counselor?
I did, but it took about 13 years.
Oh my goodness. And were you meeting with a psychiatrist or a psychologist?
A psychologist. And then
Okay.
some just what are they? I can't remember the letters. Counselors, not a psychologist or a
Social
psychiatrist.
workers.
Not a social worker either. Yes. Yes, you're right, but
Yes,
there's
the
extra letters
counselors,
that they
certified
add on.
counselor. Yes, I know
Yeah.
there's a couple, lots of other alphabet soup like
Yes, that's
that.
a
Yes.
lot of letters, and they've added to them. So there was a couple ladies because one moved on. I was with her for a while, and then she moved on to another position. But yeah, it took a long time. Now now there are things in place. There's programs in place specifically for women, for female
Good,
veterans,
good.
and there's all kinds of things that the VA provides, which is awesome. But I was kind of what did my one counselor, the gentleman that I first saw, he said, we're going to have to blaze a trail with you. And I remember clearly saying, I don't want to be a trailblazer. I just want to feel better.
Well,
You know,
part of feeling better, of course, is people interacting with kindness. And so, how do you define kindness, and why is it so important in our lives?
oh my goodness. If people were kinder to each other, the world would be such a better place.
You think?
Kindness to me, it would, truly. Kindness to me is being able to see people for who they are and meet them right where they're at without judgment. If you notice someone hurting, acknowledge that. You might not be able to help them, but you can at least acknowledge, you know, I'm so sorry that you're in this spot right now, or I'm so sorry that you're hurting. Is there somewhere you can go for help? And if you know a resource or a phone number or whatever, provide that. Being kind just can change someone's life in an instant. A smile at a stranger that you're passing on the street. Because none of us know what someone's going through. I could
That's
be,
true.
my life right now could be a complete shambles, and you would never know. You know, yours could be a complete shambles. How would I know that? So why not be kind? That's my question. Why wouldn't someone want to be kind? You know, Gosh, it doesn't cost you a dime.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, certainly part of sometimes we turn on kindness rather than practicing it all the time, don't we? In other words, if we see somebody who's visibly suffering, and there are people, the cliche, they wear it on their sleeve, you feel like you need to reach out.
Mhm.
And we all do that differently. I use words. I'm a talker. um, I'm also adverse to touching, so I'm not going to go hug people. I'm going to talk with them and modulate my voice and stuff like that. But I think you make a wonderful point. How about people who bear it well, like you did for years and years and years, carrying that inside you? And if people said, oh, well, I'm not going to be kind to Kim because she doesn't need it today,
Right.
they don't really know, because a lot of us, I mean, there are people out there who are, I'm sorry, we often use the term drama queens, and that can be male or female, obviously.
Right.
And I have a relative in my family who's a drama queen. And it doesn't mean that they need all the kindness in the world. And sometimes you meet a person who's like, darn, that person really has their act together. And behind the scenes, they're dealing with some really tough stuff in life.
I have found that those people that are the kindest have been through or are dealing with their own trauma. Those ones that reach out and help, that are the helpers, are ones who recognize it in others because they've been through hell and back. Or maybe they're in it right now. You know, that's why hold the door for a stranger, offer to carry someone's groceries to their car, you know, smile at a stranger, compliment a stranger. I started doing that a lot outside of handing out my little nuggets of hope that I have. I physically hand these out to people, um, strangers. So, I probably look like a creeper or a stalker, but hey, I have hope.
Well,
So,
you probably get a little bit of leeway being female, because we are a society that's accustomed to the women being the moms, and being maternal to people and all that. And I wanted to
right.
bridge into our third question, which is, what are some practical tips for integrating kindness into our lives? You just mentioned one. You have, and for we do this in webcast and podcast, so there are people who are listening who can't see. But Kim held up a little. Is it a rock?
It's a polished stone, just a small one. You
Okay.
can carry it in your pocket. Polished. I don't know. I might be aging myself, but older gentlemen, like my grandfather's age, used to carry stones in their pocket, and they call them worry stones. They
Yes, I've
carry them
seen
and
that.
just, rub them with their fingers and stuff. So this is a small polished stone with the word hope engraved in it. And
Cool.
so yeah, I started doing that a couple 2.5 years ago, and that's part of how the book Nuggets of Hope came about. Of that's I share some of my interactions that I've had with people that receive those nuggets. But back to your question, I mean, just simple little things. Just like I was saying, smile at a stranger, compliment a stranger. I saw three older ladies in Walmart one day, and they were just giggling. They had to have been in their mid to late 70s, and they were just giggling up a storm. And as soon as I heard them, I started smiling. And then when I came around the corner and saw them, they all had big purple hats on, and they were just laughing and giggling. And I'm like, they are having a blast. And when I finally got up to them, because I'm like, I got to go say hi to these ladies. So I walked up to him and I said, "Excuse me, ladies, but I have got to tell you, your hats are fabulous." And they just started laughing. They're like, "Oh, thank you." And they're preening, playing around, just being sarcastic, fun in a fun way with their hats. But they made my day. They absolutely made my day. And I wasn't in the best mood that day. I wasn't having the greatest day. And I heard their laughter first. So you don't know what you're doing at the time, how that might be affecting total strangers that are around you or that might see you. If you're walking in the park or something and you see someone with a puppy or a dog or pushing a stroller with a baby in, and it just makes your heart go, "Oh." At least it does for mine. And that takes you out of your own muck. Because
Mhm.
I'm always saying I got stuck in my muck. And it's like, pull yourself out, Kim. Come on. There's always something to be grateful for. I guess that's the other thing I want to say. There's always something to be grateful for. And it doesn't matter what it is. Sometimes I might wake up because I had a horrible night. I had nightmares all night long. And I wake up and I'm so tired and I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to make it through this day? I'm so tired. I'm not going to be able to get any work done. Then I remind myself, Kim, quit it. Quit whining. You got a lot to be grateful for, including this cup of coffee.
I knew
That
you
might
were going to
be,
say that. Just have more. If you had a bad night, have more coffee during the daytime.
yeah.
Now,
But I mean,
what's your
that's
answer
just,
for me, though?
to be grateful. That might be the one thing you're grateful for that day, but you're grateful for something, and it's taken your mind out of the muck, you know?
True. Well, the problem is, in my case, I had to switch to decaf coffee about 1990. So that's a long time ago
That is a
because I would wake up and, like a normal person, have a regular cup of coffee, and then I would vibrate the cup off the table. And
oh,
it just had a dramatic reaction. I about 5 years ago, I got to switch around. So I now do decaf in the morning and decaf at night because I like the taste of coffee. I grew up with coffee. But then at lunchtime, after lunch, I have one cup of regular coffee. So I get one thing. I'm going to a 3.5 hour opera next week from I think 7:30 to 10:30. Well, actually, it'll go to 11. And I'm going to go ahead and have a cup of regular coffee right before I go into the
right
opera,
before you go.
so I can sort of stay awake for that. It's Tannhauser, which is one of Wagner's shorter operas.
One of the shorter ones, yes.
Oh yes, he's done some 5 hour. I've caught a couple 5 hour operas, and in those cases, I just bring a pillow. Yeah.
I've never been to an opera. I've not ever been to one.
Well,
Although I do like listening. I like listening to Pavarotti every once in a while.
sure, he's fabulous, and of course,
Oh,
he's I think he's retiring or retired now, but he was widely regarded as one of the best opera singers of
yeah.
this most recent generation. And I'll tell you how I started because it's I think it's informative. I started with Gilbert and Sullivan, which, as someone with a great sense of humor like you have, the Gilbert and Sullivan, part of the trick with Gilbert and Sullivan that people don't realize is it's political commentary of the 1880s. They are making fun of the crown. They are making fun of royal society. And if you realize what they're doing sarcastically, if you will, that's an American term, not the English, you can really see, oh, I see what he's doing. He's pretending to be a caricature of the king, but of course you couldn't do that in 1880s.
Right.
But you could write a comical opera and have someone that you don't call king, but acts a lot like it. But it was interesting because I saw an opera just a few weeks ago that I had not seen before, Rossini opera, and it was a lay down comedy. I mean, they had a pie in the face. They pulled a wig off a guy. I mean, all sorts of stuff. I had never seen an opera like that, but that was around 70 years before Gilbert and Sullivan. So I think what happened is that you could see the lines from that to Gilbert and Sullivan, that they
Yeah.
definitely knew what they were doing. And maybe also let people know there are a few lawyers out there with a sense of humor,
Yeah.
because they were barristers, and as well as musical people. At least the one who did the lyrics was a barrister. I don't know if the one who did the music was. But anyway, that'll get you started. Kim, we always try and be respectful of our guests and give them you keep it short. The other thing that we always say is we keep it short because we want our audience to actually listen to it, because we're not going to give them the book. What we want them to do is to say, wow, Kim Lengling, what an interesting person. I think I will look her up and get her book, Nuggets of Hope. And for our audience, how do they get more information about you and your book?
Easiest place is just go to my website, which is my name, kimlenglingauthor.com. There you can find my books. You can find the episodes to my podcast, Let Fear Bounce. You can see what I'm doing, what I'm up to. If you want to contact me, go ahead and scroll to the bottom and you can hit that contact button. That's where Dexter comes in. He will get all those emails and scan them for me and let me know who's reaching out and what they need. So yeah, Dexter, my office manager, my trusty office manager, will take care of all that. But yeah, would love to hear from you. All my books are available on Amazon, just under my name, Kim Lengling. And again, my website is kimlenglingauthor.com.
This is Dr. David D. Schein. Thanks for joining me for this special edition of Saving America. Remember, a new Saving America show is aired on the Brushwood Media Network every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Listen on any of the 16 network stations, Apple or Google mobile app, Apple CarPlay, TuneIn, Smart Speaker, and all smart TVs. Find more information at the brushwoodmedianetwork.com. Please be sure to join us each week. We welcome and love your feedback from our growing audience.